Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, bringing you another tutorial. Today, I'm going to show you how to create a full score in Finale Music Notation Program. I am currently running Finale version 2014.5 on a Windows 10 computer. If you have another version of Finale, or if you have another operating system, I'm certain you can find out the proper keystrokes and operations to do this exact same thing. The important thing is we're going to show you what to look for in creating a full score for concert band in Finale. Let's get started. We're looking here at a score I have opened up in Finale. It's showing page view. You can notice right up here in the upper left-hand corner, view, it says page view. We also have a scroll view available, but we're not going to use that right now. We're going to use page view. Notice we can only see part of the page. We want to see all of the page. Now we could either do that by clicking on the zoom tool. I prefer to use the zoom palette, or under the Windows menu, I go down and I see the view palette. Click on that, and you'll notice we now have a new palette right down here. I'm going to drag this off to the side so that it doesn't take up too much screen real estate, and put it off here over to the right of the normal palette. Now you'll notice one of the items on this zoom palette shows a page with a top and bottom arrow. If we click on that, it says fit in the window. Basically that means vertically fit in the window. I do that, and you notice now I can see all of the page from the top to the bottom. This is important because what I want to do, I want to see how the page of music fits on the page of paper. You'll notice the first page fits fairly well. If we're looking from the top to the bottom, we don't see any collisions on the top, we don't see any collisions on the bottom. Whenever you set up a new Finale score, however many staves you put in that score generally will be sized to fit appropriately on one sheet of paper, whatever you have set up. Now I like to set up my scores to print on 8.5 by 11-inch paper simply because this is the dimension of paper that most everybody in the US has available on their printer, and people in Europe who use size A4 paper can print 8.5 by 11 paper on size A4 with no problem at all. However, if we look at the second and subsequent pages on this score, you'll notice that Finale has kept the staff spacing from the first page onto each of the subsequent pages. This gives us a big blank space at the bottom, where on the first page we had the header information, the title, the subtitle, the author. This gives us a big blank space at the bottom. Now I'm going to take care of this in two ways. I'm going to space all of the pages number 2 through the end a little bit farther down from the top, and I'm going to put a little bit more space in between the staves. But before I do that, I want to make sure that we don't have one measure or two measures taking up the last page of the score. Now to do that, I'm going to click on Go to Last Page button right here, down at the bottom, and I notice the last page has 1, 2, 3. It only has 4 measures on it, where previous pages, let's click on the previous page here, the previous page has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 measures. To go from 12 measures to 4 measures, to me, seems just a little bit out of sort. So what I want to do is to put enough measures on the last page of music to make it look like it is about the same music density as the previous pages. So we have 12 measures on page 15. On page 14, we have 10 measures. On page 13, we have 9 measures. So we could put 6 measures per page, and that would be a little bit better. Or we could back up another page and do a little bit more. Tell you what, let's do. Let's pause a second, and we will look at a spreadsheet which will let us figure out how many measures we put on each page. Okay, I have now got a little spreadsheet put up here. You can see here I've got, starting with page 16, which has 4 measures, page 15 has 12 measures, average those two, it's 8 measures, Add in page 14, which has 9 measures, gives us 8.3 average. Add page 13, has 9 measures, averages 8.5 measures per page. And if we go all the way back to page 12, and that has 11 measures, that averages out to about 9 measures a page from page 12 through page 16. I think that's what I want to do. I don't want to go any beyond that because that starts getting a little higher, 9.5, 10. You notice page 10 has 15 measures per page, and if we go over here, we see a lot of these are 2/4 bars, and they're very small. So what I want to do is I want to go to page 12, and I want to select all the measures from page 12 to the end. That'll average us out to 9 measures per page. Let's do that now. Let's go to page 12. Here's page 10, page 11, page 12. Make sure we have the Mass Edit tool selected. I'm going to select the first measure there, hold down the Shift key, press the End key, END key, and there we go. We notice it selected that measure and all the way to the end. Now to distribute and designate the number of measures we want on a page, we want to do Control M. I use that as a shortcut key. It's on the Utilities menu. There it is. Fit Measures, Control M. And it tells us how many measures do we want on a page. We go look back at our spreadsheet, and it tells us we want 9 measures on a page. So here we go. We're going to put 9 measures on a page and make sure it's from the current measure, 172, through measure 216. We say OK, and that puts us 9 measures on a page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now let's scan from there to the end of the piece. And here's 12 with 9 measures on it. 13 with 9 measures on it, 14 with 9 measures on it, and 15 and 16 with 9 measures each. And that does look a lot better. All right, now we can go back to the home page, and we really want to work on page 2. So let's go to page 2. And we don't want to miss out on comparing it to page 1. So I'm going to grab the bottom scroll bar, move to the left just a little bit. That's a little bit too far. There we go. We're still on page 2 down here at the bottom, but we can see page 1 off to the left. What we want to do now is we want to select the page layout tool. There we go, selecting the page layout tool. And in the page layout menu, we want to do not page margins, but systems. And edit margins. This gives us a dialog box. Up in the upper left-hand corner of the page 2, we'll see we have a selection box. I'm going to click on that. You notice it's turned a little bit darker red for that selection box, and here we have selected System 2 through System 2. We're going to test it simply on the first system. We're looking to put some space between the title and the top staff of music. So we have 0.23611 inches there. I want more than that, so I'm going to highlight that, and let's start off by doubling that with 0.4 inches. We're going to apply and see what it looks like. That doesn't look too bad. Let's apply that to all of the systems through the end of the score. Since we only have 1 system per page, we can do it this way. We're going to go System 2 through System 0. 0 is Finale's way of saying go all the way to however many you have, and we're going to apply that. It will happen with all of the pages. There we go. We notice we have across the top of all the pages more space between the title and the top staff of music. Excellent. The next thing we're going to do is space out the staves to fill up the page. To do that, we're going to use the staff selection tool, which is right here. And notice we now have selection handles on each staff. This is really cool. If I wanted to move the staves on just one page, I'd select that measure, hold down the Shift key, and select that measure. And now, if I wanted to move this page only, I'd hit the down arrow and just, let's do that right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 down arrows. And you can see we now have 15 increments of spacing between the top staff and the second staff, and it only applies to this page. you will notice that it does not apply to subsequent pages. Hold on a second. I'm going to put it back where it was. Up arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now it's going to take a minute for that to catch up, but that will be back where it was. We don't want to do it for just this page. We want to do it for the entire staff from page 2 all the way to the end of the score. Now, to do this, we'd simply select the first measure of music that we want. And again, we're in the staff tool. We hold down the shift key and press our end key. And you'll notice it has selected all the way to the end of the score. Let's go to the last page. Down here, we'll click on the last page, and you'll notice that one staff is selected to the end of the score. Now let's go back to the beginning, page 1 with that, and jump to page 2. And we're going to right-click and drag just a little bit so that we can see page 1. You'll notice down at the bottom, we have about an inch to fill up, and we have about 26, 27 staves that we're having to move. I'm going to move each staff down about 2 down arrow increments. But before I do that, what I want to do is I want to put some space between the brass and the woodwinds and between the brass and the percussion. To do that, I'm going to find, first brass staff will be the trumpet, first trumpet. So to look at that, let's click over on the 100%, scroll down, there we go. Tenor sax, bari sax, first trumpet, going to go shift, end, and let's just put 5 down increments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That just gives us a little bit more. Let's make it 7, 6, 7. A little bit more visual spacing between brass and woodwinds. On a full score, it's important to pick up these visual cues. Now we're going to scroll down. We're going to find the first percussion staff. Let's click on the mask selection tool to get rid of the selection handle so we can see what we have. We have tuba, double bass, bells. That's the first one. Now we'll make sure we have the staff tool selected. The bells are selected. Shift, end, and let's go down 12 down arrow increments. Pressing down arrow key on the keyboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 down arrows, and that will give us another visual indicator between the brass and the percussion. Once that has caught up with us, let's go back to the full page top to bottom view up here in our view palette, fit in window, and again we're going to go to page 2, right click and drag to the right just a little bit. We're on the staff selection tool. I'm going to start on the top here and click on the first measure of the second staff, shift end, select it all. Let's do a down arrow, just 2, 1, 2. Okay. When you get to the first trumpet staff, the one that we have already added spacing to, we're going to add an additional 2 down arrow increment spacings just to keep the proportional additional spacing between brass and woodwinds. Okay, I have reached the bottom staff of the score. We'll notice that the score on page 2 is not quite down to the bottom of the score of page 1, and we want it there. I have 2 options. I can go back through it again and add 1 or 2 more. The staff on page 2 can go lower than the staff on page 1 because the staff on page 1 accommodates the copyright notice, and page 2 and subsequent do not need to accommodate that copyright notice. Or I could put more space between the brass and the woodwinds and between the brass and the percussion. I do believe that's what I'm going to do right now, simply because This is a tutorial, and that would be a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go to the top percussion staff. I can see that visually now. Hold down the shift key, press the end key, press the down arrow. Let's give it about 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go up to the top brass staff, which is right here. We can see that visually. And click on that. Hold the shift key, press the end key, and give it down arrow 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is still very nice. Maybe what I want to do is also put in a little bit of space between the saxes and the other woodwinds. Let's put a little bit of space there. This is the first alto sax part. Shift end. And I don't think I need to put 12 additional spaces. Let's put about 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 there. And I think what I might do is go down and put a little bit of space between the French horns and the trombones. Now I know I've got trumpets, 1, 2, 3. I've got horns, 1 and 2, and the first trombone would be right about there. So let's hold the shift key, press in, and give that 7 spaces as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I'm doing as I'm doing this is I'm looking at the bottom staff on page 2 and comparing it to where is the bottom staff on page 1. You'll see that now they look about equivalent, and the bottom staff on page 2 is a little bit lower. Let's go back to page 1 and see what it looks like. Now when you print this out on paper, of course it's going to be too small to read, because when you put 20 some odd staves on one piece of paper, it's too small to read. But we're going to print this to a PDF file, and people who are studying full scores, and that's the only reason you really need a full score, is for score study. You can blow up a PDF file about as big as you want. Okay, we have this done now. This is good enough, I think. The only other thing I want to check is, what does each page look like? Are there any collisions? So we're going to go to the mask selection tool. I'm going to go not just to the 100 wide. I want to go so that a page takes up my whole screen left to right. I'm going to start at 200. I'm going to right click and drag it so that the last bar appears just to the right, just to the left of my left margin there. All right, I can see that over here on the left-hand side, we're not getting everything that we need to get. So I want to go to a custom zoom level. Did you know, by the way, that if you double right-click, it goes to the previous zoom? I'm over here in a blank area, go double right-click, there's the previous zoom. Let me check at about 175% zoom. Now to get a custom zoom, hold down the control key and press your 0. And I'm going to try a 175% zoom and press OK. And now we're going to right click, drag. That looks a lot better. Once I have this zoom, I go through every page. I scroll down it to see if there are any conflicts as far as dynamics, articulations, notes, text markings. What we're looking for is a little bit of breathing room between all markings. Notice this mezzo forte here almost touches the double bar, just to give some comfort level. I'm going to drag that just a little bit to the left. That gives it more breathing room. All right, I'm going to drag the bottom scroll bar to the right so I can get on page 2. There's page 2. All right, now I'm just looking over, follow with my cursor here. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Arco looks good there. We have all the band coming in the last 2 measures, so that's really all I need to look at. Okay, we got the woodwinds coming in right about the middle of the page. This is not going to be a problem. The bar line does not extend below the bar on the individual parts, but it does in the score. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that just a little bit to the right so it's comfortably off of the bar line. We don't want it. Anytime a text marking or articulation or a dynamic marking touches anything else, it's more confusing than if there is a comfortable amount of space between them. All right, we're up to the top of the page. Here's rehearsal marking. 21 is in the middle of the bar. I don't want it in the middle of the bar. I'm going to hold down the shift key and drag it to the left. That's where it needs to be. This number 29, it impinges just a little bit on that high E flat for the piccolo. So I'm going to drag that just a little bit to the left and maybe just a little bit up. That makes it much easier to see. All right, stand by now while I go through the rest of the score. One of the things you should know that whenever you move something in the score, for example, this rehearsal marking 65 or this rehearsal marking 73 that I just moved, it will move it in all of the parts. So when you do that, be aware that's what's going to happen. If you don't want that to happen, I suggest that you make a copy of the score for printing and move it there. And later on, you can move it in the parts. When you put in rehearsal markings, they generally show up in green. The fact that this is orange tells me that it is disconnected from the linked parts as far as positioning goes. The position of the number 73 in at least one of the linked parts is not the same as the position here. So when I move it here, it does not move it in those linked parts. Now I've already printed my linked parts to PDF, so that's not going to be a problem. Notice that here also the moderato extends past the right side of the page. If I go to the right a little bit, it extends a little bit. I believe I can fix this by moving these two bar lines. I'm going to go to the measure tool. I'm going to grab this handle here and move it just a little bit to there. I'm going to grab this measure tool and move it that much and then that much again. And look at what we have here. It all fits over the measure. Plus these measures here are not particularly crowded. I'm going to scan down the page just to verify there's nothing else going on that needs to be adjusted. That is good. We're good on that particular page. Moving on to the rest of the score. Always gravitate to the Mass Select tool. And if you are in some other tool and you want to get the Mass Select tool, press your Escape key once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. Depends on what is selected. You have to unselect things first. As we are approaching the end of the fine-tuning of the score, you'll notice that to format the score properly, of course, the score must first be fully tweaked. All of the dynamics, all the articulation, all the text markings must be put into the score. They must be positioned properly. They must be consistent. There are just so many things that you need to do to make a score ready for printing before you do this final tweaking of the elements just to make sure they all look to be where they're supposed to be. But it looks like we're coming down a home stretch here. And there's the last page. Okay, here we go. We've got a maestoso, and it will impinge on this trill mark if we let it. But notice how high above the staff the maestoso is. Of course, it's got to go over this piccolo marking, but this means it will be way above the staff and all the other parts, so we're going to have to be very careful what we do with that. And this trill needs to be just above the tie on that last note. Close enough so that you can visually tell that it's associated with that and not whatever's above it, but far enough away that you have a comfortable visual separation. I believe that is going to take care of us, and we are ready to print this score to PDF. First thing I'm going to do is save it. Control S will save the score. By the way, always continually save your score. When I was chief of computers at a large school, people would ask me, how often do I need to save my document? I would tell them, You need to save it whenever you have so much work put into it that you can't afford to lose it. They didn't really like that answer. They wanted, oh, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes. But that's the best answer I could give them. All right, let's go back to page 1. Let's see the whole view, double right click. And let's just scan through it, see if anything jumps out at us. Yeah, looks pretty good. Music density looks acceptable. It's something people could read if they had to, although you really don't want to have to read 23 pages on 8.5 by 11. Large publishers, they print on 9 by 12 paper, but I gotta tell you, 23 staves or 26 staves on even 9 by 12 paper is just not gonna hack it. So if you want to learn how to make a score that you can actually read, see my video on how to create a compressed score, or go to silvercleftmusic.com and under the Home tab, look at the menu item about scores, and you'll see what we mean about a compressed score. That's it for now. I'm going to print this to PDF and then we'll be done. Take care.